Hello, Jesse McDougall. Do another book review today with the Martial Arts of Money. Barry Strauss, The Spartacus Wars. This is I'm emotionally tied to this story, and it's amazing. If you can pause and try to put yourself in a mentality of 2,000 years ago, even just try to vision what civilization was like. If you can try to do that, even attempt, and keep an open mind, you will find this very interesting. When I came across, I've heard of this, the Spartacus story as a kid growing up. I never really knew much about it, but there's that show that came out a couple of years ago. I think maybe 6, 7 years ago. Basically, the Spartacus show. And there's 4 seasons or so. And season 1 was just an epic hit, and then the main actor died from leukemia, I believe, which was quite sad. They got a new actor, and and made 3 more series. But it's an amazing story, and that was kind of glorified or whatever. But it gave me an appreciation for what it was like for living at a time like that. I kind of think of, okay, well, if I was born, where would I be? What would I be doing? Which kind of person do you think I would have made my choices and I would have become? Because the person you became or where you were in society 2,000 years ago, you could kind of see where you'd end up. And not all the time, just generally speaking, but it's just something to think about. But I'll give you the quick rundown on the Spartacus story. I can't go into a whole history lesson here. I'm not a historian, number one. Number two, I'd be here for 20 minutes. I'm trying to keep this down to 5 or 6 minutes. But basically, the Spartacus War, to my knowledge, it's the largest slave rebellion ever in human existence. Okay, Spartacus he actually served in the Roman army as a mercenary. They call him an auxiliary, where they pay someone. Or I think Rome took over his land in exchange. He had to fight in their army. The interesting thing about the Spartacus story is there's only 4,000 words written about Spartacus. So why is this story still here 2,000 years later and super popular? It's a great question, right? There's only 4,000 words written about you in history, but your legacy still lasts on and still inspires to this day, 2,000 years later. Yeah, you might want to pause and take a look at this. Pretty serious stuff. So anyways, as the history goes, he was taken into slavery captivity, and then he was brought into the gladiatorial games. Regardless of what the movies tell you and whatnot, there is no documented history of any of Spartacus's battles in the Colosseum. It's not like the UFC night. Oh, let me go look up in stats and see. Oh yeah, Spartacus was 2-1, and like no, it doesn't. It's like to the death. It might be a different book, but this book, it shows actual gladiators putting etches on the walls. Whatever was 10 wins, 1 loss, great fighter. It said, right? And it has like a few of those that other people wrote 2,000 years ago, and you can still see those. So it's pretty amazing if you can pause and just realize that, hey, we all die someday, and to go out that way, to be in the Colosseum and have 10 battles, survive 10 battles to the death, and then die 1, and then you have a notch on the Colosseum and it says you died a glorious, honorable death, and that's the best you have. Like, that's pretty serious. Like, it's like, I know it's kind of out there stuff, but like, this actually happened. So this is why I get so passionate about this kind of stuff. Fast forwarding, Spartacus plotted and escaped the Ludus. Okay, so Ludus means Roman for field of play. Okay, it could be a soccer field, football field, whatever. It's the Ludus. So if you're one of my friends a few years ago, I was going off on crazy rants on Roman history and everything. I was starting to annoy people, and then I think anyways, and then I just stopped talking to people. And one of the reasons why I'm doing these book reviews. But I would tell people I'm going to the Ludus, and they're like, what? So I'm going to the Ludus. So go to the Ludus every day to keep that hand-to-hand combat strong, because actually, here's an interesting story. Sorry to get off a little bit topic, but one of my jiu-jitsu friends, he got stabbed 8 times last Saturday downtown Vancouver. So I went to the hospital to see him, and I said to him, I said, hey man, this is one of the reasons why I focused half my life on hand-to-hand combat. And I tell people when I'm instructing or teaching that this is a skill set you learn and develop and you keep for life, right? It's your best therapy. Like going to a martial arts gym, doing jiu-jitsu, doing kickboxing, sparring, you're getting aggression out in a positive outlet. I said to my friend, what if you never did jiu-jitsu? What do you think might have happened? He's, oh, that's a good point. Yeah, you could be dead. So he got stabbed 8 times. They only hit his diaphragm for like hitting his vital organs. But his ear got sliced, his rib, his back, his neck. So yeah, that's why, go to the Ludus every day. It's a positive environment with great people to get frustration out. You get to deal with a lot of your problems in life. And until you go through that process or even attempt that process, battling anxiety and stuff inside, it's hard to relate to what I'm talking about. But that's why anyone who ever walks through the martial arts gym at any gym I'm at, training or instructing or whatever, I'm like their best friend because I understand the courage it takes to walk through the doors. That's half the battle. Once you walk through the doors, a good gym will make you feel safe. They know where you're at. So anyway, sorry for that side rant. I thought it was just important for the Spartacus War because, defend yourself. These guys train in the Colosseum and the Ludus every day till the death, and the best case scenario they have was to die with honor. Okay, so Spartacus actually escaped the Ludus with 75 other gladiators. I think there was 200 gladiators in the Ludus at the time. So he escaped with 75 gladiators, and they had like knives, kitchen knives and stuff. And as soon as they got out of the Ludus, there was a weapons cart coming in. And so they raided the weapons cart, armed the 75 guys with weapons, and they just ran amok. So you have trained killers, trained warriors, guys, and these are like the athletic alpha males. So the guys that own the Luduses, they're not, they go buy these guys from the slave auction. Yes, a slave auction. So if the Romans took you over, they would take, you as slaves. They would put you in a chain with a neck and a chain and pull you down, walk you all the way hundreds of miles back, put you to a slave auction. So the guys that owned these Luduses, it was a business for them. They would go buy the athletic, strong men. So you bring these athletic, strong men in, you invest money into them, train them into literally killers. The best case they have is a die an honorable death. They escape from the Ludus and arm themselves with actual weapons, 75 of them. That's insane. That is insane. Just out with all civilians and everything. And anyways, they end up, so the facts is they built, and history ranges, a 75 to 120,000 slave rebellion army. Okay. I'm going to say that again. Escapes the Ludus, 75 gladiators. They turned that into 75 to 120,000 person army, slave rebellion army. And at the time, Roman armies, they were often, I don't think it was Egypt, but it was somewhere down south and north, I believe. So they didn't have any armies in Rome. So they wreaked havoc. I won't get into every battle, but the long story short is Spartacus won 9 battles. He defeated 9 Roman armies. 9. As a slave in a slave rebellion army. So the first one, they escaped the Mount Vesuvius. And the Roman army was coming. They saw them coming. and they thought Roman, oh, they're dead now because they're at the top. There's nothing they can do. We're just going to go to the top and annihilate them all and have a battle. What Spartacus and the army did, they made these vines and they actually rappelled down Mount Vesuvius. And then they raided the Roman camp in the middle of the night and scared the crap out of everyone. And that was the very first battle. I won't get into every battle because the truth is I don't remember them all. But the end of the story is, and this is where the romantic side, I don't know, in me comes in. So I'm more of a, the underdog wins kind of guy. I've been an underdog my whole life. So I relate to the underdog story quite well. But, Spartacus dies, but he dies a soldier's death. His body was never found. So that was pretty great. Nine Roman armies. This book, to be honest, Barry Strauss, he's a super famous historian. I believe he's in the Tools of Titans with Tim Ferriss's new book. I haven't read it yet. It's on my shelf though to read. But I did find this book fairly boring, I will be honest. But it's written by a historian. It's not written for entertainment. So that's why I like to read history books. Then I'll read like a fiction novel on the topic, which I'll cover later. I want to do a podcast on this. It's actually on my agenda for over a year. Procrastinating, do a podcast on the Spartacus story, like interview with some other famous people. Oh, right. So, I'm not sure if I already covered Marcus Crassus. So anyways, I'll wrap this up here, but Rome was like in fear, a state of fear. This was the third slave rebellion they had, and Spartacus was actually going to march on Rome. He was at the southern tip of Italy, which I forget what it's called. Shoot. And anyways, he was going to go over to Sicily because Sicily was like the it had tons of slaves, and there's a large slave rebellion. It's like I said, it was the third war, and slave rebellion was, I don't want to say fairly common, but he had a lot of support there, and that's where all the grain came. Feeding Italy was like pretty hard, so a lot of the grain came from Egypt and Sicily to feed all of Italy, to feed the Roman Empire. I have a map of the Roman Empire at its greatest extent, and man, wow, it's amazing. You could one governing body can control all that. It's insane. But anyways, Spartacus was going at the southern tip of Italy over to Sicily, and he paid some pirates a bunch of gold and stuff like that. But the pirates betrayed him for whatever reason. History doesn't exactly know. Some say they got murdered. Others say they got bought off by Marcus Crassus. And so that threw the curveball in Spartacus's plan, because he was going to go to Sicily, raise more troops, rest a bit, get more ships, build more artillery to actually march on Rome. And there was no army in Rome at the time. So you can imagine thousands of these slaves rebelling, raiding all these farms, murdering farm owners, raping women, children, insane stuff. Like, if you open up your mind to what actually is going on, just brutal barbarism. Yeah, it's just that's where we come from, man. That's the game, right? Yeah, you learn. So anyways, Spartacus got betrayed, and this guy, Marcus Crassus, I'm going to cover him in another podcast or another video blog, and that's the guy who defeated Spartacus. So I spent a lot of time studying Marcus Crassus because I looked up to Spartacus. You're taken into slavery, you escape, build an army up to 75 to 120,000. You defeat 9 Roman armies before you die. Yeah, there's a thing I can learn from you that I can apply to my life now to get the achievements and goals that I want out of this world. So this is pretty deep stuff. But then I was like, oh, well, who's this guy that defeated Spartacus? 9 other Roman armies couldn't defeat him. it's consulars. But 9 Roman armies got defeated. But why did Crassus win? Let's study that guy, right? And you learn from these other guys. And I'm not going to get into Crassus. I'm going to say one last thing. Crassus paid for the entire army himself, and he's famous out of his own pocket. He's famous for saying, "You're not rich unless you can afford your own army." Yeah, it's serious stuff. You're not rich unless you can afford your own army. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up from here because I actually have 2 more Spartacus books I'm going to go over. But yeah, Barry Strauss, thank you for putting this good piece of literature into human civilization. This book was written, I believe, in 2004. It's fairly new. Spartacus story is 2,000 years old. Any questions on Spartacus, things I got wrong, things you want to correct, questions you have, send me messages, post on the YouTube blog. I'd like to get a discussion going on this one. I will do an actual podcast at some point. I'm just not sure when with all my businesses going on. But really enjoyed this, and open up your eyes. Take care. Have a good day.